Now, over the last 7 weeks, in the run-up to tomorrow's election, we have focused on some of the voting hotspots where campaigning has been intense.
But what about those corners of the region which get overlooked? No battle buses, no leaders' visits. Here's our general election reporter, John Hess.
Mention Melton Mowbray and pork pies and blue Stilton spring to mind.
And that's helped establish Melton Mowbray as the East Midlands capital of food. But when it comes to tucking into politics, well, there's one pairing that's more like chalk and cheese, and that's the constituency of Rutland and Melton.
Walking the dog, Conservative candidates are Alan Duncan and his pet cockapoo Noodle. They've both been pounding the streets of a rural constituency that's one of the biggest in Britain.
She's the vote winner, not me anymore. And is that to compensate for the fact that you don't get the battle buses and you don't get the big leaders here? Well, we don't, because I suppose we're not seen as a primary battleground seat. So in a constituency like this, what are the biggest hits? Well, they're, I suppose, the same as across the whole country, which is we need a government with authority which can negotiate Britain leaving the EU in the best way for Britain.
We're in Oakham, the capital of the ancient county Rutland. The streets aren't exactly paved in gold, but it's noticeably the more affluent neighbour of Melton.
On any measure, whether it be schools exams, health or the quality of life, Rutland regularly tops the National League table. Melton Mowbray, less so.
Labour's candidate, transgender Heather PETO, says it's not just the party strategists that bypass Melton and Rutland.
Melton has needed a bypass for a long period of time and it still hasn't got it. The rails need electrification. There's only a service once an hour between parts of this constituency on the railways.
2 years ago, UKIP came second, beating Labour into third place.
We do not trust the Conservative Party or whoever wins the general election on the Brexit negotiations, and we have to stay in the field to hold them to account.
In such a rural constituency, it's no surprise that the environment matters.
Rutland is lagging behind, and we could do with more rooftop solar farms and with wind turbines, but always with the consent of people who live in the area.
We're getting people concerned about fracking that's proposed for the north of Melton in the Vale of Belvoir. We're hearing from people concerned about cuts to local school funding. Every primary school in Rutland and Melton is facing cuts under the Conservative and Lib Dem plans.
This isn't one of those battleground seats, but every vote matters all the same. John Hess, BBC East Midlands Today.
And you can see a list of all the candidates on the BBC website. As you can see, our political editor Tony Rowe joins us now, catching your breath after a snap election, which I guess was rather overshadowed by 2 terror attacks.
I mean, today, as we saw earlier in the programme, we had a last-minute sort of flying visit by the PM. I guess, as John just said, every vote obviously counts. But if you could pick on one thing which you think might decide this election, what would it be?
It has, for me, to be what happens to the UKIP votes. In the East Midlands, UKIP got 15% of the votes at the last general election. And some of those marginal seats where we've seen the politicians going, like Mansfield, they had 25% of the vote. So that vote could make all the difference. And the different parties are fighting for that vote. In the south of England, I think there's an assumption that all the UKIP votes will go straight to the Conservatives. Well, I have a hunch that it could be different here. We may see something different playing. That these voters may think, well, they've gone from Labour to UKIP, perhaps. Will they go to Conservative? Perhaps, perhaps not. We don't know.
How significant will the East Midlands be in the eventual outcome?
Well, clearly, the politicians think it's significant because they keep coming here and they keep sending senior people here. In the long run, when the election's played out, who knows? Because the Conservatives come here because they want to win in Labour heartlands. They want the biggest majority possible to give Theresa May the mandate she's after. If she doesn't get that, we could see a situation where nothing changes in the East Midlands and not much changes in the country, which might lead many to think, what was the point of that?
We haven't got long to find out now, have we, Tony? Thank you. It's 40 years today since Don